Alright, g'day there. Richard Musgrave-Evans here again, and welcome back. Today, fantastic stuff. Down the beach, down the coast, got a beautiful sunny day. Got the clear prime Belgian linen again, and tons of oil paint. Pretty excited about this one because it's been a while since I've been down the beach. So, what's happened here, I'll just fill you in what I've done is I've just blocked in a tiny bit to get the composition in my head, and also just to loosen up a bit. So what I've done is I've put the darks in, like so, taped a bit of horizon line, got that level, pulled the tape off, so it's all perfect, ready to go. Now I've got the major shapes, and now I feel like I'm ready to get into it. So now what we'll do is, later on, mind you, I'll pull this tape off around the edges. I'm just making a bit of a border, and I like to work with that. The Belgian linen is such an interesting texture in itself, or colour. It's great to make it part of the painting. Alright, so later on that tape will come off, but for now we'll just leave it there. Alright, so what is the biggest difference between what we've got here and this? Alright, so what do we got? Sand, beach. I'll just put a bit of that sky in. Now that sky is a beautiful blue day, but right on the horizon it's not quite as blue, so we'll just work that one out. Okay, I'll use a bit of burnt sienna, obviously tons of white, bit of yellow ochre. That'll give me a nice ochre type colour, or light colour, which is what you tend to get down low on the horizon. Now I'm going to get my ultramarine blue and white over here. Mix up a light tone and pull some of those ochres into it, and those ochres will knock the blue back, give it more of the feeling of that warm horizon. Let's just see what we've got, hey? Yeah, it's quite grey. It's actually graded off, but the horizon is quite greyed off that low. I might just put a little bit of phthalo, and that phthalo is a green blue, and that'll really just give you a bit more power. Because it's got a little bit more blue, a little bit more power than I was originally giving it there. Okay, just knock that in there. Right on the very horizon there's a bit of a coastal haze, so what I'll do with that is I'll go magenta and ultramarine blue, oops, magenta and ultramarine blue, and knock up more of a dusty mauve, I guess you could say. Let's have a look. A bit more magenta, a bit more of that burnt sienna, that'll grey it. I want it to be kind of a mauve dominant, but at the same time, kind of a grey blue. Now I'm pulling it down, not quite touching that horizon yet, because that horizon, as you know, is wet. So I'll bring it as close as I can without quite touching. There we go, something along those lines. A bit more yellow ochre in this mix. Pull that back down into there. Okay. A bit more of the yellow ochres and greens. Just a tiny bit more in the sky here. Not too much. Right, before I go any further with all that, it gets stuck into way more of the straight blue and white, so it's going darker and cleaner. So French ultramarine blue, white. It's looking not too bad. I'll get that on. A little bit more blue in the mix. Just pull those colours together in broken colour form, blending them. Right. Clean that knife a bit. Go for some more blue, stronger blue now. Cleaner and stronger. Less of the ochres, more of the straight blue. It's an absolutely fantastic day down the beach today. It just doesn't get much better. It's pretty warm, but because you got the coastal breeze, because you're right on the coast, just up in the hills behind me is absolutely boiling. Just here we're not too bad. Alright, so you got that. A bit darker now. I'll introduce a little bit more of the magenta. So you've got ultramarine blue and a little bit of magenta just to send it a slight red blue. A little bit more white with that. Just a bit more paint in general. Let's get that paint on. Bit more magenta and blue, here we go. Look at that, it's going on beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Alright, now I'll just stand back and analyse what I've got going on. Let's have a look. Okay, something along those lines, yeah. Just making sure I've got enough of that grey blue down low. Okay. Now just do a little bit of blending. Pulling those colours together. Little marks. They're all blending, but at the same time they're still sitting a little bit next to each other, slightly broken. Which gives the illusion of light and detail. Those little colours sitting next to each other. Gives you much more energy and just gives a feeling of light. So bear with me for a minute, I'll just get that going. I also like to just clean that up a bit. Once I've got it blended, then I like to vary the marks a bit more. Initially I start off with fairly similar marks, then after a while you vary them a bit more to give more interest and variety. Alright, let's have a look at that. Not too bad. Okay, let's get into the next stuff. Major differences. Still a quick bin run. Okay, so got a lot of cool colours in there. Now those banks are beautiful and rich and warm in tone, so I feel I need to get that in now. What I might do is just get a bit of my cad yellow and cad red, just knock up a little bit of an orange. Okay, half mix that with a bit of yellow ochre and some white to just frost it off a little bit because she's pretty strong. See what we got here. Just want to have a feel. Okay, so yeah, right. A little bit more yellow ochre, a little bit more white. Just lightly touching there, so I'm letting the linen show through quite a fair bit. Now, there's a few dark shadows which are going to go. Let's have a look. I better get them in now. The sun's going across, so some of the shadows that are on that cliff face is not going to last unless I get them in now. They'll be gone soon, so I've got a bit of Bit of darker shadow colour there. Alright, now let's just go for another bit more headland, go for a bit of burnt sienna and white into that ochre mix. Just knocking it back a little. What do we got? Yeah. It all varies in colour. There's quite a bit of magenta type brown with it, so I'm half mixing that into the mix just to add a little bit of stuff there. Right. Bit more white, keyed it off with those magentas and blues as it goes back to the next headland because it keeps getting further away obviously. Right, so look at that. Alright, so we've got a bit of that. Before we go any further, let's get some of that water in. Bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of turquoise, plenty of white. That's about right. A little bit more turquoise in areas where it really peaks. Yellow ochres, burnt siennas. Just getting some basic colour in first. A little bit of blue in there. Pulling it through. Going to go for some, excuse me, going to go for some viridian green and white, which makes a really high key colour like so, real turquoise, beautiful stuff. Half mix that with some of those other beachy colours I was using. And that'll give you a bit more yellow ochre, I reckon. A bit more yellow ochre with that turquoisey mix. Gives you the feeling of the shallow water, that beautiful colour that you get. Now I'm going to use some viridian green and mix it up a little bit different. I'll use some phthalo maybe, we'll try it out. And what that's doing is going the other way, it's giving you more of that blue-green for the deeper water out here. Stick some of that on the edge. The higher the sun gets in the sky, the more turquoise the water seems to go, so now I'm just going to, excuse me, just correct that blue. The blue I've got on the horizon here is just a little bit, in my mind, a little bit too chromatically strong. It needs to be just greyed off ever so slightly, so just going to put a little bit of the red colour in to knock it back a little. Keep it nice and dark. Just clean up that horizon edge by taking a bit of paint off. Really sharpens up the edge. Okay, so that one goes in there, right? A bit of turquoise out there, right? Okay, so it gives more of that turquoise colour. Knock it in the shallows there. Just like so. Alright, see what we got here, eh? We're getting there, Alright. Feel these colours, just working out the composition. A bit more of that in there. Just put a little bit more green in that colour. It varies depending where it is, how shallow the water is, of course. What we need to do is get some of this white sand in. It's obviously a very light tone, so there'll be plenty of white in it. Bit of yellow ochre, a bit of the cad colours. Make it a real bright sunny day, one of those fantastic days down the beach. Let's have a look here. Yep. Trying to get a bit of a keynote through this section. Lightly drag it through here and there. Beautiful, beautiful colour. Contrast drastically all those other cooler colours. You've got this real high key light colour now. Too much turquoise in there. I'll get a bit of magenta. Magenta with those whites. Bit of brown. Just trying to knock up some of the weed. There's a bit of weed on the ground here. We'll just put a bit of that in. Just feeling where it all should be. Stand back and have a look. It's always going about feel, particularly if you're going to leave. Really got to go by feel, but particularly if you're going to leave a lot of linen as well, which I intend on doing. Hang on, we'll get this a little bit cleaner. There's a bit too much cold green in that colour. I'm intending on painting some more high key warm tones, so going to need whites, high key colours, no greens or blues thrown in, just the oranges and stuff. Alright, constantly getting back and analysing this, constantly. More of your weedy, warm colours here. More of your beautiful sand there. Right. That knife upside down on edge, just going to knock in some of the distant headlands. Take a bit of paint off there. Right, now I've got the shadow tones of those rocky outcrops that are there, but I just want to... It's a beautiful coloured rock. It's a very kind of pinky red colour, fantastic colour. So I'm going to add the lighter tones of that in with a bit of alizarin maybe, a bit of burnt sienna, maybe a bit of magenta, a bit of blue just to knock it back. Let's have a look. Beautiful colour, beautiful. Just place them in like so. Knife on edge, picking out all those rocky headlands. Just go a little bit darker here where it's hitting the water, where that headland's hitting the water. It's just a little bit darker, so place all that in. Okay. All right, now the sky's reflecting into the wet sands. Where are we? Just in here. It's putting beautiful blues into the shallow waters, so blue and white obviously. Up onto the wet sand. Flickering around here and there. I can see some really strong blue where there's a bit of weed on that first headland there. Just jutting out on that rocky outcrop. Some fantastic deep blue, ultramarine blue weed, so I'll stick that in now. For a bit of magenta. Just painting some of the weedy bottom at the moment. While I've got the blue, the idea of the blue, I'll keep going with that for a minute. Okay, now knock up some good phthalo blue, white, bit of ultramarine blue now. Lighten that with more white, very light tone blue. Just going to lick a little bit of this stuff, this light blue, where you get that slack water where the wind is not really blowing, and so it reflects the sky. I find that when the wind is blowing, all the little ripples on the water, they all stand up, which means your eyes can see into the water and you see the bottom. But as soon as it goes calm, as soon as there's no wind, it becomes more like a mirror and you get that reflection, and so you start getting the sky instead. So there's a bit of both at the moment. There's some areas where there's reflecting the sky, but at the same time there's areas where it's just got the bottom where you can see straight in, which is a beautiful look. Just pulling them together a little. Alright, we'll just knock up a few of the saltbushy greens that are up on the cliff face here. Start placing a few of them in. Which helps to also depict the edges of the headlands. Well, there's a lot of colour in there now, there's a lot of colour and tone, which is great, but I feel like now it's gotten to the point, hang on, I'll just put this in. It's gotten to the point where I should take that tape off, because now I'm finding it hard to judge what to do next. But if I take the tape off, it'll give me much more of an idea as to how finished the painting is and what I need to do next to make it work. Alright, let's just put this in the bin and get that tape off. Hopefully it'll be kind to me this time. I won't end up wearing it. It's all good so far. All good. Look at that. What a difference. What a difference. Immediately it looks different. Immediately. Right, we'll just go pop that in the bin and stand back and see what we think. Alright, well that looks different. Immediately though, as soon as I stand back, I feel like I need some accents. Colour is that? Just one pure white with a bit of cad yellow deep, some real high key stuff. I'm going to place a few accents in places, the bright beach sand. Really jumps out, it's a great thing. Knife on the edge here. The beach sand is a great thing for accents because it's so bright and warm in tone. Contrasting. It's got the knife on the edge again and running it along for this headland here. Right, making sure I get it level so we're not on some weird angle. Right, maybe something keyed down a little right near the base here. Knife on the edge. Just picking out a few details here and there. Constantly working on draftsmanship, obviously. Constantly working around the picture and constantly finishing. You've got the original impression, which is the big blobs of colours and tones. And then as things go on, you get more into that finishing, refining stage. Now I've just gone a little bit over the waterline there, so I'll get the clean knife now and lift it up like so to bring that horizon back to being a level horizon, which it needs to be when it's that far away. It needs to be absolutely level. Right. Viridian greens, burnt siennas. Just lighten that tone a little bit. Alright, get some of those big, chunky, beautiful bits of paint. Thrash it in there, let's have a look. A few real highly, thickly painted to contrast the fact that some areas only have canvas, or only have the Belgian linen, by going really thick as opposed to thin drag marks. We've got quite a few thin drag marks through here, up through there. Thick paint is just a beautiful contrast, and paintings in my mind should always be about contrast. Warm against cool, hard against soft, detail against no detail, lost against found, thick paint against thin paint. Smeared paint against chunky hard paint. Let's get some of these beautiful ochre type colours, so you can see into the water where the waves, little waves are breaking, the little ripples. As soon as they break, you can see into the bottom again, and that gives that clarity. Alright, well, that's about it, I reckon. Pretty much got the big impression, pretty happy with what I've done. And like I said, it's a perfect day down the beach. You couldn't really want for more. Fantastic day and very stable conditions because it's the middle of the day, so that's been great. Now I feel like I got to work with a lot of the things I was trying to do, which was get a lot of colour into those rocks, which are the warmer tones, and contrast them drastically or dramatically with the cooler turquoises that have really started to kick in too as the sun's getting higher. I've noticed the turquoise, like I thought might happen, is getting into the water. I think as the sun gets higher, it shines straight down, hits the bottom, and it shows up the colour more. When you've got a low sun, it seems to bounce off, and you see much more of the reflection of the sky rather than seeing the colour of the bottom. So those turquoises really come out closer to midday, and that's what's happening now. Alright, now I've done here, I've played with heaps of paint in the foreground, really warm colours, pure whites with bits of cads and whatever just flicked around to give the feeling of the thick chunky sand under your feet. So on the whole, yeah, everything's thinned off down here for the distance receded. On the whole, I'm pretty happy with what I've got, and yeah, what we'll do is we'll get that camera off and we'll have a look and see what you guys think. Alright, well if you like the video, remember to give it a thumbs up and spread it around to all your mates and do all that sort of stuff. And if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and do that. Hit that notification bell, that way you won't miss any of these videos as I upload them. Alright, let's get this camera off and we'll have a look around. Thank you.